It's a very simple set of procedures. Okay? You're going to collect your water sample. In Artika's case, it's going to be wells, it's going to be river water, it's going to be rainwater harvesting. What else did we talk about?
The upstream.
The upstream that's in the river, rainwater, that should pretty well cover it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're going to be a little bit different because you're going to have to actually set up a set of experiments. Okay? And we'll talk about that, but let's in a minute. But let's go over the procedure first. So first of all, where's our water? You're going to collect your water sample. Now, how you collect the sample will depend on the source of the water that you're collecting from. Okay. It could be that when we're on the boat on the Chao Phraya, we'll just put a bucket in the river. That's actually something that I'm going to be checking out this week when I go to Thailand. I'm going to check. I have a good morning. I have a meeting with the barge people to see what equipment they have to confirm all the things that we can do with them. Let's assume that we have a bucket, okay, just like you had in 103, for example, okay. Because we're reusing the bucket each time, you don't want to cross-contaminate your sample, okay? So if you just put the bucket in once and take your sample out of the bucket, then maybe some of the water from the last sample is left in there. So that will contaminate your new sample. So what we need to do is when you take your sample in the bucket, you throw it out. You rinse, throw it out, okay? So you are going to do that 3 times before you actually collect your sample. Okay. In the case of the rainwater harvesting tanks, you might be able to actually sample directly from the tank, so you won't have to actually sample. So we'll see how that works. Okay, it's going to vary depending on source water, as I say. So the important thing is to remember you have to work aseptically, which means sterilely. You don't want to cross-contaminate your samples. So the first thing that we can do with our buckets, we rinse 3 times, toss it out, and then the 4th time, that's when you take the sample. Okay. So let's assume that our bucket is, we've now collected our water, and we've got the water in our sample bucket. Okay. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take a sample of the water using this pipette. Okay. Now, these pipettes come sealed. This is a practice one so that we don't misuse our resources. So they're sealed, and again, they're sterile. When you take the pipette, you'll take it out of the seal. Don't put your fingers on here, because this is going to go into the sampling. Don't start scratching. Yeah, you laugh, but my 103s did that this weekend. One of the girls started scratching so don't do that. Remember, you've got to keep this. Don't put it down. Okay? You have to work aseptically, absolutely sterilely. So you need to always be aware of that. Okay? All right. So what you will see is this pipette has gradations on it. Okay, this is 1 mil. This is a 1/2 mil down here. Okay. Normally, for most samples, I think we're going to take 1 milliliter. Okay, 1 milliliter of water for most samples, except for probably the rainwater harvesting systems, which usually have low bacteria levels, and also maybe some of the filtered water that goes through the ceramic filters. In that case, we'll probably take 5 milliliters, so you're going to have to take 5 of these. You need to take 5 because if the concentration is very low, you want to make sure that the concentration of bacteria is low. You want to make sure that you get enough sample into your media to actually get a good count. Okay? So the more water you have, the higher the chance, the more bacteria you're going to have in the sample. If you only have 1 mil of water, it may mean that you only get 1 colony to count, which is not so accurate. Okay? So we want more than that. On the other hand, it's a trick because if you use too much water and the bacteria levels are very high, then what happens, Deanna? Then, what did you say? It was a pain to count? No,
Yes.
It's troublesome to count, okay? So, it's a balance between trying to figure out not too much. Now, this is not a bad one to count. Okay, so that's probably a pretty good one. This essentially had no growth on it, so we probably could have used more volume for this one. Okay? If you get much more than this, then it becomes difficult to count the colonies. Okay, so it's kind of a balance. Like I say, as a rule of thumb, we'll probably go with 1 milliliter unless we think that there's a source of contamination nearby. We'll probably go with 1 milliliter of water. The rainwater will probably have to use 5 milliliters of water. Okay. All right. Now, the next thing that you do, okay, you're going to take up 1 milliliter of water, and I'm going to get you guys to practice this. So you bring it up to the 1 mil line, okay? And then you're going to put that 1 milliliter of water, these will be unfrozen at that point in time. You're going to put the 1 milliliter of water into this media, okay? It's food for the bacteria. It helps them grow. So you'll put the 1 milliliter of water, or whatever volume it is, into this growth media. Okay. You'll gently swirl it around to mix the water. Okay.
Okay.
Don't shake it because the media will start foaming, and then that makes it difficult when you pour. Okay. Then you're going to take one of these Petri dishes. Now, these Petri dishes are plastic. They will break quite easily, so handle them with care. The second thing you have to remember is the big side here, that's the lid. That's the top, okay? The big part is the top. If you pour the sample into the top, you will get no result. Okay. You have to pour into the bottom here. Okay, because the bottom, the base, has another coating on it that helps with the biochemical reactions. Okay, and basically what ends up happening, and I'm going to give you one of these color guides as well. Basically what happens is the E. coli colonies turn purple, but they will only turn purple as the result of the combination of reactions in the growth media and the coating on the bottom of these Petri dishes. So they're special Petri dishes. Okay? So you've got to pour into the bottom. Okay? Now, what you'll see is, when this thaws out, it will be a liquid. Okay? Within about 20 minutes to a half an hour, it will form a gel. So you can see I can do this, right? Once it has a gel, so you don't have to worry about it. As long as you let it sit on a flat surface, like I say, for 20 to 30 minutes, then the gel will form. And then you can carry them around no problem. Right? No problem. They have to sit for 48 hours before you count, so the colonies have to grow. Okay. So we'll let them sit for 48 hours. Now, we will not be worried about the pink colonies. Okay. JJ, you've already seen a bunch of this anyway.
Yeah.
We will not be worried about the pink colonies. The pink colonies are the total coliform colonies. Okay, we're not worried about those. But that's the nice thing about the Easy Gel. If you wanted to, you could count total coliform. But we are going to count the purple or blue colonies. Those are the E. coli colonies.
Purple and blue?
Purple and blue. It depends. Sometimes they look, that's purple and blue. Okay, that's kind of a bluish purple. You see these different colonies here? So as you can see from the guide, sometimes the colonies will look like that. They'll look purplish. Sometimes they'll look a little bit more bluish. Okay? So purple or blue, are the Ecoli, and that's what you're going to count. And that's it. It's as simple as that. Okay? Now, there are a few other considerations. One, is I want you all to practice getting 1 mil, okay? Because I know it sounds easy, but I ran an A-level teacher's workshop in May, and they had trouble picking up 1 mil, even though it's very simple. But for some reason, they couldn't use the pipettes so well. So practice using the pipettes before you go out. Okay. 2. You'll do the counts and it's quite easy. Hopefully we don't get too many colonies. If you get too many colonies, what you're going to have to do is probably divide the Petri dish up into quarters and just count 1 quarter and multiply by 4. Okay? 3, when you're doing your counting, take a pen. Okay, a marker, and just dot, okay? Whenever you've done a count, put a dot over top of it. It helps you keep track of which colonies you've counted, especially when you've got a lot of them. Okay, so we'll bring markers. Three, you've got your counts now, okay? Normally, not always, but normally the way guidelines are expressed is it's E. coli colonies, so you're counting colonies here. Sometimes it's expressed, you'll see it expressed different ways, but it's usually, for this, it's usually CFU, colony forming units. So a colony forming unit is one of those purple dots. Okay. So you've got your counts now. Now usually, guidelines are expressed per 100 milliliter. Okay? Number of colonies per 100 milliliter of water. How many milliliters have you taken?
1.
So how do I... Times 100. Okay. Now, let's say I'm with the drinking water, though, and I've taken 5 milliliters. What do I have to do? Times 20. That's correct. Okay. So that's why you need to remember and always write down what volume that you've used for your pipette. And I know it sounds like a goofy thing to do, I'll remember it, but when you go back to do your calculations 2 days later, you go, did I have to change that for some reason? And it does happen, okay? So always get in the habit of writing all of these things down in the field while you're doing it. Okay? The third thing to think about. These are quite robust. We don't have to have special incubators or anything like that you normally have to do. And they're very accurate results. The only thing that we find is, you have to be careful, is don't leave them in the direct sunlight. That seems to inhibit the growth. We've had some, maybe it just gets too hot and it messes up the media. I'm not sure why. But we've had not too many, but a few cases where it seems that, and we were on a boat in Cambodia, and I think they were left in the direct sunlight. So just put them in the shade. Okay? And then they'll be fine. So always work aseptically, in other words, work cleanly. The other thing, when you're pouring the plates, again, be careful, all right, with the plates. Just take the lid off and hold it upside down and then immediately cap it. Okay? Don't put your finger, I know it sounds goofy, but it's easy to forget about things. You happen to put your finger in there, or you happen to put your finger in the lid. So when you're holding the outside, hold it like that. Okay? I don't want to open it up too long because it's a little bit smelly. Okay? All right. So make sure you work carefully. And actually, what you should all will bring lots of disposable gloves, especially on the Chao Phraya River, which may have higher bacteria levels. Whenever you're handling the water, you'll want to wear gloves. Okay, so we need to make sure you work safely as well. The drinking water, less of a concern. Okay? But in the small streams, because people may have contaminated the small streams, you're going to wear gloves. Okay. Now, these have live E. coli colonies, so we have to also be careful with that. Okay. So don't breathe them in, keep them capped, and so on. When we're done, we'll have bleach the way we, and all we have to do is pour the bleach into the inside, let it sit for an hour or two, and that will totally kill all the bacteria, and the gel will kind of turn back to a liquid a little bit, and then we can just put it down the sink, because everything's dead, and we can flush it down the sink, down the toilet rather. Okay, so that's the basic. Questions? All right. That's it.